3.5 weeks ago, we hired 1,000 red wigglers to do a job we can't. Let's check in on our vermiculture compost setup. Well, there are a few things going on in this bin that you can see right away. And the first one is we've got some volunteer plants from some seeds that I accidentally threw in when we first got started. Now, I've heard that some people actually use the vermiculture compost to start plants, peppers, etc., but that's not something we intended to do, so we're going to pull these out. I'll also tell you that the smell is really nice. It's got a nice earthy smell. And actually, this is the corner where I last fed them. And you can see the worms have bundled up in that corner because they know how to find their food. It's been about 85 degrees outside for the past week and a half. And so while we have stored the setup in our garage, it's just too hot. And we've been storing it inside, which again isn't a problem because there is no bad smell. One of the things that happens when you start a vermiculture setup is that the worms have to adapt. And so what you can experience is worms trying to escape. That usually happens early on. I counted a total of 4 worms that tried to make their way out of this setup, but because we kept the paper on top, the newspaper on top, and because we kept a good eye on it early on, we didn't have any that escaped us, and they seem to be doing a great job. If you look, you can still see some of the bedding that hasn't been broken down at all, but as we get deeper, you can start to see that they've been doing some hard work. I don't want to disturb them too much. They've definitely been doing work. And if we look at these worms, they probably don't like me too much for disturbing them, but they look healthy, and they look like they're up to the task. And you can see what they're doing with some of the material that we've been feeding them. And there's a little baby in here. I guess not so little. But they're turning it into those castings, which is exactly what we're hoping for. You should also notice that there is a decent amount of moisture around the sides. And this moisture is not from any watering we've done. It's from the feeding and also the humidity in the area where they're stored. And if we look through the bed, and I've tried to be consistent about this, but if we look through the bed, the moisture level is constant. So there's no area that's soaking wet. There's also no area that's dry. One of the things we've noticed about the worms is that they seem to like to be together. They really bunch up around the food. So if we feed them on one side, they head over to that side. And if we feed them on the other, well, they head back. Now, one of the things you might notice in here is that there aren't any really big chunks of food that we've fed them. And that is intentional. Early on, we made the mistake of providing them with some full-size banana peels, and we started to notice some molding happening. So instead, we've taken a few extra seconds and taken a large knife and just chopped them into small pieces. We're feeding them kale stems, bananas, we have carrot greens, and then we've also picked out some of the dying green leaves from the garden, and we're using all of that. So rather than wasting it, I mean, we could compost it in our regular compost, but we're giving that as food to the worms. And you'll notice that I'm covering up this food every step of the way. So I'm not just laying it on top, I'm putting it underneath so that they can be more comfortable accessing it, and it's bringing it right down to where they're staying. We're only 3.5 weeks in, and this process is going to take 3 to 6 months. So we're nowhere near ready to harvest any of the castings. But at this point, everything looks healthy and we're in great shape, and we'll let you know what's going on in a very near future. So again, this is recycled, upcycled food scraps. We have our banana chopped up, our kale chopped into small pieces. These are about 1/2 inch to 1 inch pieces. Our greens, once we harvested some of our carrots, we took the greens and chopped those up, and the leaves that were going to be thrown in the compost anyway, going right in here. We're feeding them about 5 pounds per week right now. We'll see if that needs to increase as they continue to multiply, but for now they seem to be in good shape. And I am going to add just a little bit of the leaves that we shredded up, just to give them a little bit more of the brown material or pink material. There it is. We're going to close it back up and let them feast. Thank you so much for joining us for this little update, and we will keep you in the loop as our little workers continue about their business. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like, leave us a comment, and let us know what your experience is working with vermiculture and how you feed your worms. If you enjoyed, please share with your friends and family and subscribe. And remember, when you're with us, you're good to grow.